Welcome to Avritt's Academy, the broadcast dedicated to Christian educators, both in the home and in the classroom. I am Katherine Avritt. Thank you for joining us this week as we discuss making connections with your students. Welcome. I hope that you all had a fantastic week of education and that you enjoyed yourself and that your students weren't too squirrely. Here where we live, it was kind of windy in the beginning of the week. And if you've taught for any amount of time, you know that the wind stirs up the students and they just get all hyper and crazy. I don't know how to explain that phenomenon other than it just happens. So it happens to students and it happens to animals as well. So we had kind of a crazy week on our front in the school, but it was good. I hope that you likewise had a good week. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the importance of making connections with your students. Now, it is a very difficult thing to do, not difficult, but it needs to be done with a lot of discretion because if you try to connect too much and be too close to them, then it could go borderline creepy and you might get reported. But we want to make sure that we are making connections with our students. And I'll just tell you a few different reasons as why we need to make connections. Number one, when you make a connection with the student, and when I say connection, I mean a personal connection to have that relationship. You're more than just a teacher and a student. And so these connections just go beyond that. And I don't know how to describe it because I wouldn't claim it's friendship. I don't know how to describe the relationship or the connection there, but definitely need to have a type of connection between you and your student. Number one, the reason we have connections with our students is it helps with disciplinary issues. This is something I didn't even realize until we had someone come into our school, and they sat in our classroom for 2 or 3 class periods. I forget. It was over 2 days. And then they gave you a review at the end. And of course, you're nerve-wracking. And before they came in, you threaten your students, we're going to have an observer come in. And if you do anything that makes me look bad, blah, you try to threaten them. And I had the period after lunch, and the students are just so crazy. And I had the craziest class at that time, just very active young people and very spirited. I guess that's the word we'd say. They were very spirited. They were 10th graders. And I was teaching geometry, and the boys were doing something stupid, as boys do. And I looked at one of them and I corrected them, and I didn't even think anything about it. And then when I had my review with the person observing and critiquing me, he said that was a big deal. And I didn't understand until he explained to me. And he said, that boy that made the correction, he was talking in class, or they were just being foolish, silly boys. And I looked at them and asked them to stop. And he said, that correction that you made, that shows me that you have your students' hearts. And when you have a connection with them, it makes discipline better or easier because they have a desire to please you. And I think about in my own life, maybe not in school. Yes, in school, I had connections with my teachers, but specifically at home with my mom, knowing that I didn't want to disappoint her or didn't want to do anything that would hurt her in any fashion, that she could just look at me or tell me for discipline, you're really disappointing me in this, and I would just start crying, it would make me sad. So when you have good connections with your students, it helps the discipline issues because they have a desire to please you. Now, of course, if you've been around teaching or around students at any time, it's easier to have that connection or that wanting to please you the younger grades. So in the elementary ages, it's easier to have them want to not do something because it would make you sad or to make you more pleased than it is in high school. But you can still achieve that goal of having the connection so that they won't have discipline issues. Number 2, it helps them in their learning and it makes them feel more comfortable with you. One, if they like you, if they have a connection with you, they'll think that what you're saying is important and they'll have a desire to want to listen to what you're saying. And so it helps them to learn more. And also if they have a connection with you and they feel comfortable with you, they will feel okay with asking questions. Now, sometimes students just sit there and they don't understand and they feel too awkward. And, they have their whole class of peers. They don't know what you're going to say. But if they feel that they have a connection with you, they'll feel open or the ability to open up and say, I don't really get it. What do you mean by a gerund is a noun phrase? phrase and or a noun clause, and they don't understand, but they'll be able to ask, knowing that they have that connection and they're going to want your help, and not worrying even if there's some other classmate who might tease them or say something. I can't believe you don't get what a gerund clause is. Gerund phrase. It doesn't matter, because they know that they have that connection with you. So when you connect with your students, it helps with discipline. It helps with and discipline and classroom behavior. It helps with academics and getting them to understand better and to pay attention and to ask questions, have that safety in asking questions. And then when you have a connection with your student, it just makes the classroom dynamic more of a family unit, and it just makes it more enjoyable for everyone involved. Maybe we've all had experiences of a teacher or a substitute, and there's a big difference when you have a teacher day in and day out, and then you have a substitute. And if you can think back in your own mind of having a substitute and the relationship you did not have with them and how you treated them and what you didn't learn from them because you didn't care what they had to say because you knew they were just filling in a time slot and they weren't going to be there day after day for you. So we realize that it's more effective in the classroom when you foster that family-like atmosphere. And of course, you have to have discipline, you have to have fairness, you have to have order and structure. But when you foster that, we're more than just here for a business transaction of here you are going to learn world history, but you're there to teach them. Something my pastor says all the time, and I don't know if it's original with him, probably not, but he says we don't teach subjects, we teach students. So teaching the student about world history is super important. It's great for them to know, in Europe and what happened in the Middle Ages and all of that. But they are more than a history grade. And so when we want to invest in them more than just in the academics, and if you know me, you know I love my academics, but we need to invest in our students, and they are more important than the subjects. And so building that connection and creating the family-like atmosphere in the classroom is just going to make every day more enjoyable. I know this is the blessing and the curse of having this as a teacher is you go home, and what do you think about at home? You take, not necessarily you can take grading home and lesson plans and preparation, but you take the burden of the love of your students with you, of this one's struggling, this one's having a home issue, this one's really concerned about their parent, this one's not doing well in class, this one's not adjusting, and it just makes you feel more personally invested in it. So the more personally invested you feel in it, the better you're going to do, because you love these kids. They are truly like your family and your kids, and you want to provide and do what's best for them. So making connections is important for a threefold. Number one, it creates it helps with discipline and classroom behavior. Number two, it helps them to achieve better academically. And number three, it fosters a family-like atmosphere in the classroom, which is going to help you and the students reach their full potential. So how do we make connections with students? Now, if you've spent any time teaching, I'm sure you know that no matter your age, if you're a younger teacher or an older teacher, these students talk about things and you may not have, number one, any interest, number two, any knowledge of what they're saying. Sometimes they're telling me things and I don't even know the words they're saying. So personally, the genre of I can't even think of what it's called, elves and stuff like that. I have students who like to read those books and then they like to tell me about those books. And sometimes in years, I would make the mistake of saying, I'm going to tell you a harsh truth. I really don't care to hear about it, because these words of these elves, I don't even know their names. They don't even sound like real words to me. It's just very strange. So for them to go on and on about their elf books or about their video games or just things that aren't in my world. I have one student who really loves sports and he wants to tell me all about the college basketball and the NBA draft and the NFL, blah, 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 blah. But when we listen to them and you hear what they like to hear, you're investing in them and they feel as if they care. And so even in elementary school students, they might want to show you their new toy or their new sticker, or tell you a story about what their family did last night or something they saw that was funny, or about their dog doing who knows what. And the younger the kids are, the harder these stories are to listen to, because they make no sense and they go on forever. I used to teach 4 and 5-year-old Sunday school for several years, and they'd want to tell me things and I just want to say, land the plane, finish the story. I don't get it. And they think it's hilarious and they think it's the best thing ever. But as a teacher, you might think you have other things to do, but investing in just taking a few minutes to listen to that student's story or to listen to whatever, see their toy, hear them talk about the highlight reel of ESPN, it's going to foster those connections and it's going to make it better. So let them speak to you. at break time, before school, and passing class. Now, sometimes a caution is if you create too much of that atmosphere, they might feel that in the middle of a spelling test might be the appropriate time to tell you a story. So I specifically have this remembrance of when I was in third grade, we were going over a spelling test. I don't remember what the word was. Our teacher dictated the word to us. We started to write it, and then one of our students in our class started to tell a story that was related to that word, and then everyone wanted to tell a story. And then I remember my teacher looked at her watch and said, "We've been on this word for 15 minutes. We need to carry on." So I'll make connections by listening to them, what they're interested in. You can make connections by remembering their special days. Kids love their birthdays. I currently have a student whose birthday is a week from today, and he has been telling me about his birthday all month. And he's going to be 15. And the younger they are, the more excited they get about their birthday too. So remember their birthdays. You don't have to go spend a whole bunch of money. Just take time to remember them. I buy them a bag of gummy worms. You get them at the dollar store. And it means the world to them because you thought of them and they love their birthday. So remember their special days. Cheer them on special achievements. Maybe they have a difficulty with testing and they did well. Encourage them. Say you did great. Tell their parents. And that also builds a connection with the parents. Maybe they struggled with turning in their homework or turning it in on time or being prepared for class. Give them a praise about it. Maybe they have an interest in having a specific type of shoe. I have a student who has like 4 shoes that are all the same but in different colors because she likes them. So I just made a comment about them, and then she likes to talk to me about whatever, and I really kind of get lost and go on vacation in my brain as they drivel on about I don't know what, but it makes us feel like we have that connection. Check in on them. Ask them about their parents. Ask them, especially in elementary school, ask them about their pets. They love to talk about their dog. I'm an adult woman and I love to talk about my dog. And if you ask me about my dog, you endear me to your heart and I want to do things for you or listening to you. So just take time to make those connections. And as we do, it just makes a better teacher and student dynamic. So just in recap, making connections make the classroom better by making discipline and classroom behavior easier because they want to please you. Number 2, it helps them with their academics because they're genuinely going to want to listen to you and they feel safe asking questions if they don't understand. And for a lot of students, it's hard for them to ask questions because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in the environment of what the teacher's going to say or what their classmate's going to think of them. But if they have that connection, they know that you got their back and regardless of the silliness it may be, you're going to take care of them. And number 3, it creates that family dynamic in the classroom, which helps your students and yourself as a teacher to achieve better. And just take those moments. There are so many ways to make connections. I just gave you a few, and I hope that is helpful to you and that you have a great week of education. And join us next week for our podcast. If you'd like to get reminders, you can go ahead and subscribe. You can listen to our broadcast anywhere you listen, on a podcast, on vlogs, on YouTube, on everything. We are across every social platform. I'd love to have you be our subscriber. Thank you. Have a great week.
Sound.